This is the Ancient and Medieval History lecture for Tuesday, March 8th, 2022, which is apparently International Women's Day. Oh, isn't that special? So, happy to women's. You got a whole days to yourself. Enjoy that. I could go on, but I won't, about tokenism and meaningless symbolism and stuff like that. I'm a married man. Every day is Women's Day. Okay. So, have your notes out, please. Your note packs, as per usual. Yesterday, we had taken the story of the Julio-Claudians up to the Emperor Nero and his accession. Now, Nero's mom was the third wife of Claudius, and she wanted her son to be emperor. Does this sound familiar? This seems to be a theme. Her son by previous marriage. That's Nero. Now, before he dies, Claudius makes Nero his preferred successor, even though he has a son, Britannicus, by Valeria Messalina. Why does he do this? Because Valeria Messalina is so profligate with her sex that the son could be Claudius's, but really it could be the son of hundreds of potential dads. And this was a problem for Claudius, even though it wasn't the kid's fault. He couldn't help who his father was any more than you or I could. Claudius just couldn't accept that. The whole Messalina thing really destroyed Claudius. So now Nero is emperor. And like Caligula, he's a young emperor. He's even younger than Caligula. He's just become a young adult man. But Nero is a poet and an artist. He writes, he sings, he dances, he performs plays. He is a thespian. Nero expresses the inner being more so than any emperor before or since. Because to him, life is art.
Go Nero.
So, Nero insists on artsying up the whole imperial court. And of course that means a whole lot of Nero performances. Oh, what a joy it must have been for the courtiers of Nero to watch the emperor perform and recite and play and sing and dance. Of course they loved it. Absolutely the bestest performance ever, because he's the emperor. Now, Nero doesn't waste his time with plebeian things like warfare or administration. He has people for that. He focuses on the big picture. So he tours the empire to see the really, really, really exciting places. Now, at this time, the most high-status cult, they had high-status cults in those days. The most high-status cult is near Athens. It's called the Eleusinian Mysteries. And the Eleusinian Mysteries are considered by the educated Greek and Romans to be just the bee's knees when it comes to intellectual ability and spiritual wokeness. The ambition of the moment of Nero is to join in with these Eleusinian mystics. They reject him out of hand. Nope, not going to do it. You don't qualify. Amazingly, their status is so great that Nero does not have them slaughtered to a man. He says, okay, maybe someday, and he leaves. This is one of the only times in his life that Nero has had to accept no for an answer. Yes, there was a club so exclusive that even the Emperor Nero couldn't join it. That's saying something. That they had the guts to refuse him is also saying something. So Nero goes on his tour performing plays so that the masses can see what an emperor they have. How subtle. How in touch with feelings. How amazingly sensitive. And when he comes back to Rome, he realizes just how dumpy the palace grounds are. He wants to expand the palace. He has beautiful visions of gardens and buildings, and he wants a canvas on which to paint his legacy in marble. The only problem is that there are tens of thousands of Romans living right where he wants to place his palace expansion. Wouldn't you know it? Whoops, there's a fire in that very area. And it burns down the entire neighborhood, killing hundreds or thousands. But that's not all. Because the thing about Roman firefighting is basically it's a bucket brigade. You get a guy down by the river, keeps filling buckets, and there are buckets that come, and a line of men, and it's slosh, slosh, slosh.
Ooh,
and Roman insulae are 5 stories high. Bucket brigades don't really stop that. So the fire tends to spread. In fact, one of the standard fears of Rome is fire, because the city is basically a giant tinderbox without good exits. So the fire spreads completely out of control. It burns a huge section of the city, not the entire city, but a huge section. And the saying goes that Nero is plucking his lyre, playing his fiddle, so to speak, while Rome burns. And it's probably true that at first, anyway, Nero is happy. Oh, I'm gonna build a palace. It's gonna be real beautiful. I'm gonna make it better than any other person could. Although he'd rhyme more. I guess it would be better in Latin. In any event, after the fire, the people of Rome are freaking furious. Because they know that Nero wanted that very neighborhood. They know it. He tried to buy it. The people didn't want to sell it. And oops, there's a fire that clears everything. Again, this is like Marcus Licinius Crassus has returned from the grave with his fire brigades. So Nero has to, I've got to come up with a scapegoat. Yeah, that's what it's called, a scapegoat. And as I told you when we were talking about the Christians, Nero decides that this new cult of pseudo-Jews are the ones that are going to take the heat. After all, their leaders, Peter and Paul, are both in Rome. So, blame the Christians, get those Christians, crucify them, and throw them to the beasts. And so Nero organizes the first systematic persecution of Christians in Roman history. It's in and around the city of Rome. But people are pressured to give away names. Any Christian that's arrested is put to the torture to find other Christians, to find their meeting places. It's discovered that they meet in the catacombs because Rome, instead of having graveyards like we do, have these tunnel networks under the city, and you bring the dead down there and you place them on a shelf, and eventually when they're nothing but bones, the bones are separated out. You got a place for skulls, and you got a place for different kinds of bones, and this is just the Roman way. So Christians meet down there because nobody goes down there at night, unless they're Goths. There are no Goths in Rome yet. It's a little Goth joke. Anyway, so that's sketchy. And of course, the Christians have the kiss of peace of their sex fiends, and they eat the body and blood of Christ, so they're cannibals, and they're pacifists, so they're traitors. But really, what they are is people who annoy everyone. And Nero calculates that by persecuting the Christians, maybe the people will blame the fire on them. So he has Christians strung up at street corners and covered in tar and lit on fire to be street lights. And there's all the stuff I told you about. Lots of Christians are killed. Peter is crucified and herded upside down. Paul is beheaded. Thousands and thousands of Christians are thrown to the lions. It doesn't work. You can kill all the Christians you want. The Romans, no. Done it. So there are plots and plots and plots against Nero. And in the year 68, Nero's on his way back to Rome when he gets attacked by, well, among others, his own guards. And he ends up retreating to a hut by a crossroads, and he's killed there. His last words are reportedly, "Oh, what an artist the world loses in me." And he's dead. So to the last, Nero saw himself as an artiste. You may be familiar with the Christian book of prophecy in the New Testament called the Book of Revelations, or the Book of the Apocalypse. And in that book, there is talk of Antichrist, of a person come to the world to do the opposite of what Jesus did. Jesus brought love, Antichrist will bring hate. Jesus brought people together, Antichrist will separate people. Jesus brought the light of truth, Antichrist will bring the darkness of lies. Many theologians see Antichrist as very clearly in the mind of John the Divine, who wrote that book. Nero reborn. Nero revitalized. They see Nero's return to the power of Rome. And any Roman emperor after Nero that persecutes Christians, and there are a bunch, are called Antichrist or Nero reborn, because the vicious spirit of Nero against the Christians is so great that it makes that kind of impression. To be considered Antichrist is a pretty big deal. So thus ends the noble dynasty of the Julio-Claudians. And in 68-69, you have the year of 4 emperors, because this is civil war. Remember the last time there was unclear basically before there were emperors, there were civil wars. Marius, Sulla, Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar, Mark Antony, and the senators, and Octavian. And then Octavian becomes emperor, and the civil wars stop. But now Nero's dead. Will there be a republic? Nope. The local commander in Italy, a guy named Galba, becomes emperor. But Galba is a hard-bottom guy. He doesn't really... Galba's impatient and petty. And so Otho and Vitellius and ultimately Vespasian march from the edges of the empire to Rome to fight whoever's emperor. So from the north, you have Otho, and he fights Galba, and Galba's killed, and Otho becomes emperor. And then Vitellius comes from the Danubian provinces, and he fights Otho, and Otho is killed, and Vitellius becomes emperor. And then, from his rousing tour of Judea and Jerusalem during the Jewish War, Vespasian leaves his son Titus to take care of the Jews and marches west with the better part of his Asian army of Romans, Roman army in Asia. And he kills Vitellius and becomes emperor. Now, Vespasian makes it stick, and he's sort of a paisan. Now, if you don't know what an Italian, know a lot of Italians, you may not get what a paisan is. A paisan is a guy. He's a regular guy. He's a He's from the farming class. He's from the plebeian class. He's a guy that enjoys working in his garden. He's a guy that enjoys getting his hands dirty. He looks like a peasant. He's a paisan. He's a guy. But he's also an accomplished, seasoned general who is a good administrator. So Vespasian stops the civil wars, and he begins what's known as the Flavian dynasty. And the Flavians are Vespasian and his two sons. And again, they're not noblemen, they're plebeians from Italy. Now, it's during Vespasian's reign that Mount Vesuvius, boom, explodes, burying Herculaneum and Pompeii in ash. Now, you know the stories, I assume, of Herculaneum and Pompeii. These happen so quickly. What?
What's Herculaneum?
Herculaneum is a suburb of Pompeii.
Okay.
It's basically they're basically part of the same conurbation, the same urban area. And it happened so fast. You have dogs chained to a pole, and they're covered in ash and killed. And you have people going and running, and they're covered in ash and killed. How do we know this? Because in the, I think, 17 or 1800s, Italian workmen are digging around there, and they start encountering these open spaces in this ground that has been made by atomic ash, or by volcanic ash. And what they start doing is they bring in academics who start filling the spaces with plaster. And then you dig around the plaster. And so you've got a dog literally biting at his chain trying to get away, and he can't. And you've got human beings in various poses of death and dying. It's pretty gruesome. The only thing I can think of that compares to it are Hiroshima shadows. At a certain range from the epicenter of the atomic explosion at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you've got on little remnant brick walls shadows of people. Because what happens is the bright atomic flash actually crispified them in such a way that the wall gets bleached everywhere except where their body was, and their body leaves like a silhouette. It's called a Hiroshima shadow. There were a bunch of them. They're really gruesome. Well, the ruins of Pompeii and Herculaneum are a great archaeological find because the Roman buildings of Vespasian's time are buried intact. This is how we know the Romans painted their walls. Up until that point, we assumed that Roman buildings were just very stolid and stark. But in Herculaneum and Pompeii, some of these paintings survived. They survived being buried in volcanic lava. So we actually learn a lot about Roman life from these doomed cities that were destroyed instantly. It's like, have you ever heard of the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles? We've got in Pleistocene times various giant animals going for a drink, but it's not a normal pool. It's a tar pit, and the animals get stuck in the tar, and blip, 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 they go down into the tar, and there they are to be found by us. It's a little museum, sort of tourist attraction now. If I ever go to Los Angeles, I intend to see it. Actually, I've been to Los Angeles, but I didn't see it. I had a... So, Vespasian reigns. His son Titus destroys Jerusalem, destroys the temple, sends Romans after the Jews at Masada, the Zealots. They kill themselves. This is all in Vespasian's time. And Vespasian, unlike Caligula and Nero, unlike the brooding Tiberius, unlike Caligula and Nero, who are bat nuts crazy, unlike Claudius and Tiberius, who are good at being emperor for a while, but they both got deep personal problems, Claudius with his enfeeblement and Tiberius with his terrible temper. And even unlike Augustus, who's incredibly charming, incredibly good, Vespasian is just a good ruler. He effectively runs the empire. He does a good job. And he does it without being an eccentric. He's not a character. Again, he's sort of a paisan. He likes drinking wine. He likes telling jokes. He likes working in the garden. Yeah, he reads. Yeah, he works hard at his job at being emperor. But he's not one of these caricature people. When he dies, his son Titus takes over. Titus doesn't live very long. Of Titus, Titus is said to have been one of the nicest men to become emperor. Then again, this is the guy that completely destroys Jerusalem and the temple of God. So is he nice, or is he playing at being nice? Or does he have a Janus-like two-headed, two-faced, two-sided disposition? Super nice, super nice, super nice, doom, death, destruction. Super nice, yes.
Well, I mean, history books are a lot of the times written by the winners.
Yes,
so
yes.
The winners are like, oh, this nice guy just destroyed the people we hate.
Yeah, exactly, because he's so nice. Only a nice guy would do that. You're absolutely right. Actually, it gets to the point, I mean, it's almost insipid. It is said that at the end of a day, Titus looks around at his court and says, my God, or my gods, I haven't gone out of my way to be nice and giving to anyone. I have wasted a day. What a guy. So he dies. And then he's wasted a day because he hasn't gone out of his way to be super nice to someone. That's how nice he was. Nice, 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 nice. But fierce. So then Titus's younger brother, Domitian, takes over. And Domitian is said by historians to be dark, broody like Tiberius, but without Tiberius's ability. And Domitian was vain. And Domitian had plots, and he played people off against one another. He would play favorites. So Augustus did this, but people still loved him. Domitian played favorites, and people freaking hated him. That's what they say. So Domitian was killed. And this ends the period of the Principate and begins the Pax Romana. Domitian is killed in the year 96. And the Senate is going to be able to, along with the army, choose a new emperor. And it's going to start a new phase. Now let's look at this period of time during the Principate. At this point in time, geographically, the city of Rome is the most important place in the empire. The city of Rome is where all the power is. The city of Rome has conquered the world. This little village on the Tiber has become the center of the world. And that matters. Rome is going to matter more during the Principate than ever before or ever since. Now, why? It may seem weird that I say ever since. Well, what Rome's doing with this power is it's trying to establish good borders and Romanize the rest of the empire. Now, I've already talked about the borders. Augustus stabilizes them, Claudius stabilizes them. Tiberius, they're going not for an ongoing expansion, but for stable borders that are defensible without too much cost. Romanization requires a little bit more finesse. Okay, the Romans have conquered the Celts, including the Gauls and the Celtiberians. They've conquered the Mauritanians. They've conquered the Numidians. They've conquered the Carthaginians. They've conquered the Libyans. They've conquered the Egyptians. They've conquered the Jews. They've conquered some Arabs. They've conquered the Syrians. They've conquered the Phoenicians. They've conquered the Greeks. They've conquered the Illyrians. They've conquered some Germans. Eventually, under Claudius, they conquer the Britons, who are also Gauls, or Celts. They conquer, at times, the Cappadocians, the Armenians. And they fight on several occasions with the Parthians. What the Romans want to do is they want to homogenize the ruling powers of the empire. And they're willing to take their time at it. This process is called Romanization. What you do when you conquer a new area is, first of all, you invite the ruling class that survives the war to join you in thought, word, and deed. to become supporters of Rome, to become actively involved in helping the Romans rule. And if the local leaders do that, if they become friendly to Rome, they may earn Roman citizenship. They may become Romans. And a number of the local people do that. They choose to become Romans. Because if Rome rules the world, and Rome is going to let me be a Roman, even though I'm black as the ace of spades, or I'm paler than any Roman with red hair and freckle face and green eyes, even if I'm blonde-haired and blue-eyed, even if I'm an Arab, even if I'm an Egyptian, anyone can be a Roman, because being a Roman is not about race anymore. The Romans say, if you read the Greek classics, if you speak Greek and Latin, and if you are loyal to Rome in an active way, you can be a Roman. So Saul of Tarsus, who becomes St. Paul, is from a family of Jews in Cilicia at a place called Tarsus on the coast. And Saul of Tarsus, his parents, become Roman citizens. So he is a Roman citizen. He's a Jew, but he's Roman. So the Romans enlist the support of the local leadership. Romanization, step one, get the locals involved. Step two, settle veterans in colonies at strategic points around the new territories. Build towns where the veterans run things. These are former Roman legionary soldiers. And you place them at crossroads, at mountain passes, at bridges over big rivers, near swamps, wherever there are geographical choke points, wherever you want to control if you are fighting a war in that area. That's where the farmers are set. Not necessarily where the best farmland is, although they try to get a little both. They settle the Roman veterans strategically so that the veterans can control the countryside. Now, these new Roman towns are going to become centers of trade. The former towns tend to become Romanized too. So, if you have people who are Druid-worshipping Gallic Celts out in the countryside hating the Romans, every few weeks they've got to go into town to buy stuff. Every few weeks they go into town maybe to get entertained. Every few weeks they go in with their kids. They meet other farmers. Maybe their kids fall in love with the kids of people who live in the towns. What eventually happens over hundreds of years of time is the distinction between Romans and locals goes away. And the society becomes Romanized. The locals learn to speak Latin. The educated learn Greek. They read the classics. They read the Iliad. They read the Odyssey. And they become Roman in thought, word, and deed. It takes a while. You know what we do in this country? We Romanize, but in reverse. See, what the Romans did is they went out and conquered territory. And that conquered territory was then Romanized over a few hundred years. We have opened our door to immigrants from around the world who should come here legally. Legally. And when they come here legally, they learn English. They get jobs. They don't go straight on welfare. That's the tradition. They get jobs. They have to function in America, which means they need to learn English. And you know where their kids go to school? They go to American public schools. Because America. And what happens is these kids, yeah, they may have parents from the old country, wherever the hell that is, who speak the old country lingo at home. But the kids learn English, idiomatic American English. They're as American as apple pie. Their name may be Mangini, or Kaufman, or Dostoevsky. It doesn't matter. They have been absorbed into America's melting pot. We Americanize through our melting pot of cultural assimilation. People come here and they become Americans. The Romans go out and they make the world Rome. Romanization is something you should understand because, trust me, for 500 years, actually for 400 years, The Russians have been trying to Russify the Ukraine for 400 years, and they failed. They failed. This is why Putin's attacking them, because the Ukrainians don't want to be part of Russia. Stalin in the 30s and 40s settled the eastern Ukraine with massive numbers of Russians to destabilize any attempt to independence. It didn't work. After the fall of the Soviets, the Ukraine was independent. The Ukrainian people do not want to be part of Russia. Even a bunch of Russian Ukrainians do not want to be part of Russia. That's why the war has bogged down, because the Ukrainians are fighting for their country, because the Russians tried to Russify them and failed. The Romans succeeded at Romanizing the peoples of their empire. And since then, every empire has tried to do a variant of Romanization. This is an important thing to understand. Most don't succeed. It takes hundreds of years. The Romans succeed because they have time. America succeeds because the people who come here voluntarily give up their old home to come to America. That helps them get involved and make it happen. So Romanization is one of those things that's pretty darn important. In your notes, please go ahead to a page that has a bunch of tactical maps. What I'll say is it'll be after the pictures. No, it's after the maps. This page right here. This page right here. Yep. Keep going. There you go. This page. Oh, yeah. Good. This page right here. Yep, you're there.
Thank you.
Hoorah.
Hoorah.
Okay, this page right here. Yep, good. Nope, you're not there.
Okay.
You're on the wrong way. Yeah, that is the one.
Yep.
I don't even know how to add that out.
Don't worry.
Look along
I've
with
done that
David if you need to. Okay, the top map is what is called a system of forward defense. Now, forward defense is the strategy of the Principate and the Pax Romana. Forward defense. So, on this map, you got three hills. The shading is darker the higher the altitude. South of a river frontier. The area south of the river is Roman. Even a little area north of the river that has a hill is Roman. The Romans control the bottom part of the map and the right side of the map. The barbarians, the barbari, the babblers, the people who speak neither Latin nor Greek, they control the top of the map, the northern side of the map. So this could be like the Danube River or something. Anyway, this major river is primarily the border. Now, you will see on the hilltops in the south, there's an old settlement, an old pre-Roman hilltop town. But it's been abandoned because there are new towns along Rome's roads. There's a big city at the bottom center of the map. Doesn't have walls, doesn't need walls. There's a city up on the border in the center of the map that is on the river. Doesn't have walls, doesn't need walls. And you've got a village off to the right on the river as well. And you've got little towns partway along the roads. You also see how straight the roads are. And they're straight for a reason, because the Romans are going to use them as military highways. Now, north of the river, there is a hilltop which is fortified. And there are some military bases along the interior of the border, little fortifications and so forth. But if you look at the black arrows, which are the Roman forces, and the white arrows, which are the barbari, the barbarians, you will see that none of them are within Roman territory. Forward defense depends upon a few things. It depends upon having better soldiers than your enemies. The Roman soldiers of the Principate and the Pax Romana are superior to any enemy they're going to fight. They are better trained, they are better equipped, they are better organized, better led, better provisioned, better reinforced than anyone they're going to fight. So, what is forward defense? Well, it's what America has used. The last time we fight a major war on American soil is 1865. No, we fight in Europe, we fight in Asia, we fight in Africa, we fight across the Pacific Ocean, we fight in other people's countries. Why? Because war is hell. War is hell. It is a miserable existence. Ask anyone from Ukraine, and they'll tell you about how horrible life has become because of the war. Ask some Russians. If they're honest, they'll tell you the same thing. You don't want war on your terrain. You don't want armies coming through your town. Because if they come through your town, the men are probably going to rape some of your women. They're probably going to steal some of your stuff. Even though they're your own troops. Because armies are rough. It takes a lot of effort to make an army something other than a danger to everyone around it, even their own people. And the enemy army is going to have no compunctions. They'll destroy what they don't rape or steal. Maybe they'll rape and steal and then destroy. They'll do whatever they want because they're an army. And battles involve killing folk and breaking their stuff. We don't want that on our territory. So, from the 1898 Spanish-American War, we fight overseas. And the Indian Wars after the American Civil War are on a minor scale. Yeah, they're in the West. They're in this area, actually. There's some Indian fighting going on. But they're fairly minor in scale. Bless you. And you don't see Indians massing armies and attacking Chicago or St. Louis or New Orleans or anywhere east. War, if you can manage it, should be fought on the enemy's land. Should be fought somewhere else. It is so horrible. And like us, since the Spanish-American War, the Romans have managed to finagle it in such a way that warfare happens outside. But to do this, they've got to be able to beat the enemy on their own ground reliably. I'll say that again. They've got to be able to beat the enemy on their own ground reliably. Roman soldier, like the American soldier, needs to be able to defeat the enemy on enemy ground, reliably. That's most of the time. So the Romans do this. They don't hide behind their border. Ooh, we don't want to know what's going on out there. No. The border is a jumping off point. The Romans send out patrols into barbarian territory. The Romans send out diplomats and traders and observers and spies into enemy territory. The Romans are involved in what the tribes are doing beyond their borders because the Romans want to know when a threat's going to materialize. And when the threat materializes, you can look at the arrows, see the threat. The Romans don't wait. They don't hide behind the river. They don't hide behind their walls. They go out and they meet the threat head on. And they crush it before it gets anywhere near Roman territory. That's forward defense. And if you can pull it off, it is the best way to wage war by far. Because all the trauma of war happens on somebody else's land. And because you can do it. Because your troops are good enough. So what kind of soldiers do the Romans have at this time? Flip to the next page, which is the last page. And on the upper left, you will see a Roman legionary of the Pax Romana. The only difference between this guy and the Augustan legions of the Principate is the Augustan legions wore chainmail. This guy wears a variant of plate armor called Lorica segmentata. But let's look at this guy's kit. First of all, he's got the big rectangular shield, perfect for the testudo. Secondly, he's got his pilums. They're behind the shield, but you can see them. You can see the joint above the shield and the little narrow javelin points. You can see he's got his gladius, which is his short sword. So he's got a giant shield and a little tiny sword. We talked about why. He's got his armor. Lonica segmentata is the best body armor made by anyone in the world for about, well, 800, 900, 1,000 years, depending upon how you count it. It moves with you. You bend, you move. The segments move like a lobster's shell or like a shrimp's shell. They're overlapping plates. And it's lighter than chainmail. You get thin steel plates made of good steel, it's going to weigh less than all those rings clanking around. It's going to be more comfortable. It's going to be more easy to move in. Yes, it will. And look at his helmet. That is not a simple helmet. He's got cheek guards to protect slashing attacks against his face. What you can't see is right above his eyes, there's a brim going out, like a baseball cap's bill, to keep the sun out of his eyes, but also to keep people from slashing at his eyes easily. That brim is going to block a lot of shots. And he's got another brim above his eyes. These are all designed. And behind his head, he's got a little sloping section that goes out to protect the back of his head from slashing and piercing attacks. So his head and his torso and chest area are covered. Why are there little coin things hanging down over his belt? Because he's wearing a skirt, a tunic. And they will tend to keep the area over the privates covered, because the weights there will prevent the skirt from blowing up in the wind. Roman soldiers in colder terrain also wear leggings and these leggings are basically like tights. They're form-fitting. They're like tights, and so they'll wear tights under their tunics or instead of their tunics. But this guy is a professional soldier. He's not a citizen soldier in the sense that his full-time job is fighting. He serves in the military for a dozen years or more. And in ancient times, when the average life expectancy was 25 years, that's a long time. If he survives, he gets land, he gets retired, he gets set up in one of these new towns that Augustus and the others are building everywhere. He trains for fighting. He fights for a living. He's really good at war. Almost no one in the world can beat a Roman unit. Because the Roman units, and you've seen that, we took time to see a variety of different approaches that the Romans had to war. So all of that made possible the grand strategy of forward defense. Okay, let's talk economics. I've already told you, this is section 5. Augustus lowers the tax rate because he reduces the size of the military. The Romans do not need to spend so much as they had been on soldiers. And he uses the army to build new roads and bridges and aqueducts and towns, and all of this is designed to improve the economy. Augustus and the whole Principate improve peace and give us what is called civilian life. Compare our lives so far to people that lived here when they were first settling the Old West. Do we have raiders in the hills that are plausible threats every day to sweep down and take our stuff and kill and all the other horrible things? No. There's crime, yeah. There are people who are vicious criminals, but we don't have armies of bandits or barbarians or savages or enemies waiting to come in and hurt us. Why? Because the American military and the American police are very, very good at their work. So you know what most Americans do? They don't worry about it. Most Americans don't worry about their own safety. They assume the police will take care of crime and the firemen will take care of fire. And the ambulance guys will take care of health crises. Unlike me, most people do not walk around carrying a weapon. Because our society is relatively safe. What that is civilian life. Most of you don't dream of growing up and becoming soldiers or sailors or airmen or Marines or coasties. Most of you, what?
I can't. It's towards the end.
Let me help you.
Yeah, we
Let's
just
keep going. You're still going. So you're getting closer. You're getting closer. Keep going. Yep, and there. Yep, that's good. So, most of you don't dream of growing up and being police officers or firemen or ambulance workers. I'll bet at one time most of you did. But today you probably have different ideas. Because you have been raised to expect civilian life. That you can live a life peacefully, without worry, beyond a certain point. Oh, yeah, there are wars overseas, but unless we get nuked, or unless an EMP attack destroys our power grid, unless we get invaded, which is unlikely, except, of course, our southern border, but that's a different story, most Americans can't imagine what living in a war zone would be like. That's civilian life. And you know what civilians do really well? They work hard and they breed. And if you have a civilian population that's large, you get a lot of stuff done, it's very productive, very prosperous, and your population goes up, which is a good thing in this time. So, by increasing peace, the Principate increases civilian life. For the first time throughout the empire, the Romans are providing people with peace. And in that peace, people can focus on their jobs like never before, and their personal lives like never before. Also, the empire becomes one vast market. If I'm an olive oil grower in Syria or Phoenicia, I could sell my olive oil, product of my olive groves. I could sell it in Syria, but there are dozens of other olive grove plantations. No, what I want to do is I want to ship jars of olive oil by ship to Britain, the newest province, Britain, because Britain don't have no olive groves. Nope. Britain needs to import all their olive oil. And oil d'olive, olive oil, is used for everything. It's used for lamp oil. It's used as soap. You smear it on your skin and you scrape it off with something that's a dull razor-like. You use it in your food. You use it for medicine. Olive oil is used as a lubricant in machinery. Don't use it today. You have better oils than olive oil. Don't ever put olive oil on your lawnmower or your... Yeah, you put it in your car and let it explode. Because everything will seize up. So, I am going to ship all the way to Britain. Because of the peace of the Principate, I can do that. It costs money to ship to Britain, but I'm going to make so much money because the Brits need olive oil and they have to import it all. So, because the empire is one vast market, I can make a lot of money. And we will leave it there. So we got religion and social, and then we're going into the second age, Pax Romana. Questions, comments, thoughts? Yeah.
Could something that was more slippery than motor oil in your car, would it go faster?
No, I tend to think it would fly apart. Yeah, I don't know what is more slippery than motor oil, but I'm sure if you found it, you could make a lot of money. Yeah. No, I don't think it would work. I think the engines are designed for a certain viscosity.
Yeah.
And if you go beyond that, they'll overheat. Thank you. Come again. Yes, I'm quoting Nahasapita Petalon from The Simpsons, who has been censored because somehow it's offensive to show an Asian Indian character prominently because somehow it offends people. I don't understand. Anyway, thank you. Come again.